Do you really have to play games to attract women? Hi there, men's dating coach HarryWilmington here, founder of IntrovertDatingSuccess.com, and today I'll be answering a question from an older guy who is tired of playing games and wants to know why he has to do certain things he doesn't want to do just to have a relationship. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon to be notified of new videos. Also, check out the website to download my free ebook, Texting Like a Boss, which gives you helpful tips on attracting women with your phone the right way. And now, let's check out that clip. We're going to be reading the letter from this guy, and it's a 40-year-old guy he's in a good position in his life in the sense that, you know, his finances and stuff are straight, his job's pretty good or whatever, but he's just realizing as he gets older that just there's stuff about the relationship game that he doesn't like, and he's not been able to hold on to a long-term relationship. And I want to kind of delve into that, talking about, like I said, how some things you can do to have a better chance at having a long-term relationship with the person you're with. So anyway, so it goes a little something like this. He says, being 40, I have a good life, 6 figures income and growing, barely have to work anymore to make that money, trying to retire at 45, 46, good security, my own apartment, plenty of hot chicks to have physical relationships with, but I can't have a stable relationship whatsoever. Relationships are games, and when you don't game, you lose. I am tired of this. Maybe I'm delusional of women and dating in general. So I'll stop for a minute because I've heard this argument before, the whole thing about relationships are games and blah, blah. And I try to express to guys that games, think about when you're a kid and you play games like Sorry or Trouble or Uno. Those games are pretty fun. But part of the reason that they're fun is because if everybody involved knows the rules of the game, then it makes it fun to play and people aren't going out of bounds and doing things that are wrong that are going to ultimately hurt the impact of how people feel about the game. And so I try to look at relationships in the same way, where it's like, yes, on some level, you can look at relationships like a game in the sense that ultimately you're trying to, you say, win a person or have them win you or whatever, okay? But those games or relationships are only not fun when you don't know the rules or when the other person you're playing with is trying to cheat or trying to hurt you in some malicious way. That is when the games are not fun. But if you know the method to the madness, then you can actually take those rules, we'll say, and you can use them to your advantage. So the typical standard one I typically use is, for example, guys don't like the fact that there's this thing that after a date, you need to wait a certain amount of days to call a girl. That is like an infuriating rule to a guy, because to a guy, he's like, well, if I like her and we already had a good date, why am I playing this game of acting like I'm not interested by waiting X amount of days to call her? So if they understood the part of the game where the woman needs to actually experience missing you and having time to wonder about you and think about you, and that by doing that, it's actually increasing her interest for you, then most guys would be like, oh, so if in this rule of the game, if I wait X amount of days, she's going to feel more feelings for me than if I call her right after the first date. Okay, I can get with that rule. So knowing that rule allows you to now have an up on the game and be able to play it better. But when you don't know the rules, yes, relationships are not fun because you're constantly not knowing how much contact to have with the person or what things to talk about or what to wear. And again, this is all covered in my book, No Girls For You, The Ultimate Guide to Losing the Girl of Your Dreams. It really boils down to like talking about these, if you're playing by these certain rules over here and all these rules suck, you're going to lose. So it behooves you to get better at knowing what the rules are and how things function, both for yourself and also for what really causes women to be more attracted to you. And then that's going to make it less of a burden on you when you're going for a relationship. Anyway, continuing on, he says, I dumped my ex because she lost interest, probably because I didn't do all the stuff that is recommended in relationships. I asked her what happened, and she gave me the usual, you're a nice person, but I'm not ready for a relationship bullcrap. She's 38. I smelled something fishy since the beginning, also because she stayed with her ex for years while he was on Tinder and cheating. Seems pretty nuts. Also, she doesn't want kids, marriage, family, never married. Her sister is in a crappy relationship with no future, divorced parents. Most of her friends, she told me, are in toxic relationships. So this is something you also want to look out for, is you want to look at the story around the person you're dating, because you and her day to day is one thing, but her and her circle around her is her life experience, is her influence, are going to determine the odds of her being similar to her friends and her family. So let's look at her sister. Crappy relationship. Her parents, divorced. Her friends, bad relationships. So she's a person that thrives in toxic relationships. So if she's with you and you're not a guy that's trying to bring about toxicity, then there is a chance that in her trying to be comfortable, she's more comfortable in a situation where there is toxic stuff going on. And so by default, you're not going to gel. Okay, now this isn't all the time, and women that are able to like really, if they've gone through stuff, been able to go to therapy and really kind of figure out these issues, then it's not as much of an issue. But there are a lot of people out there, especially women, that aren't going for that, that aren't trying to find out what's wrong with them, or it's not their fault, it's your fault, or whatever. And you can try to make those situations work, but ultimately you're pushing against a losing battle. Continuing on, but I didn't stop myself. I tried to make it work. I tried to enjoy my time with her, and we had some good weekends, also some boring ones. Enjoyed texting and chatting. Some days it was good, some others it was okay. I initiated a lot, but she replied joyfully, at least at the beginning. Sex was good, but not always. She is hot, but not so sensual or sexual or playful. To me, when you are just being yourself and it doesn't work, it's a problem of compatibility or chemistry, if these are words that you use. Or maybe I just try too hard. I would say it's sometimes a problem of compatibility, but this whole definition of just being yourself, I think a lot of guys had that skewed. And I want to do a whole show on that at some point. But the short version is that who you are, I think Will Smith said this in Hitch, even though I'm not a big fan of that movie, but he said who you are is a very fluid concept. And that is true, because as you grow and develop and learn things, you add stuff to your experience, which now becomes a new part of who you are. So you evolve. The basis of what you believe can be the same. And in terms of you as a person, it's good to evolve and also to recognize the parts of yourself that aren't functional for a relationship. So if the version of just you now is that you're anxious and needy, I got news for you. That's not going to gel with a lot of women. So you might want to consider working on that part of yourself so that way that is no longer a part of who you are. Continuing on. Or maybe I just tried too hard. I am still affected by this because I am 40 and it seems like this stuff is not going to end anytime soon. I just would like to sit down in front of the fireplace with a nice woman beside me, maybe some kids running around. But I've heard that most men want that but will never have it, and women want that but they always mess up everything with their overextensive expectations, get divorced, start to hate men, and become neo-feminist. Oh, yeah, this guy's really, really downing himself. And, you know, to his point, most guys do have that fantasy. For women that are watching this, believe it or not, we do have the fantasy of actually wanting to have one person and settle down with them and just have kind of like a laid-back life and whatnot. And I think sometimes in having that fantasy, guys jump the gun because they're wanting this thing to happen, but they're wanting it to happen really, really fast. So when a girl comes along, 2 or 3 dates in, he's already like, yep, I'm already picturing myself with her on a couch somewhere. We're already married, got our kids, we're good to go. And then they start operating from that position when they're still just dating the person. And how you function in the dating phase of relationships is going to be different from how you function in the relationship aspect. In the relationship aspect, things are way more serious, and ideally you're only doing for that person, and the stuff that you do in the dating phase, it's really like you're doing less to attract more, whereas when you get there, you have a maintenance program going on, you're doing more, but it's not the same level. And I think guys try to do so much at the dating level that they should be saving for the relationship level. And that can scare a woman off or start to make her feel like this is way too serious too soon, and then you lose out. And so this is why I try to tell you guys, you need to really apply patience to your dating game, because if you're not applying patience, you're rushing, and that's going to make most women feel too pressured and want to leave. It just is what it is. Continuing on, seems to me that the world of relationships is completely messed up. Do you know any working relationships with two partners that are just being themselves? I know one, when I discuss with them, they just don't understand what I'm talking about. Or is that total BS and I'm a lost soul? Or should I just date 300 more women or start being an a-hole? This guy sounds like a recovering nice guy, because I used to have the same thoughts, which was, I'm too nice. I must have to be a jerk or a bad boy in order to get these women to want to date me. And that's not the case. And I have training at my website that can prove you otherwise. It's not that you need to be an a-hole. It's just that a-holes and bad boys traditionally show more traits that are attractive to women than nice guys do. And a lot of that boils down to being their own person and knowing what they want and not caring what other people think, whereas nice guys definitely care about what other people think. And that is to the detriment of a woman's feelings for you, because she wants a guy that's going to kind of be his own man and know and be confident that he has the ability to lead. And you being the nice guy aren't really giving that off. So this guy definitely has some things to work on, but he also needs to be mindful that both people need to be bringing things to the table that is going to better ensure that the relationship you have with this other person is going to go long term. And I think over the course of a relationship, people start to forget that. Like, people either start to feel like, well, the other person's not pulling their weight, or the other person legitimately is not, or it's this thing where like they have stuff they were doing in the beginning that they're not doing anymore. And then you kind of start to, as you get used to that person, you start to think, well, you start to take for granted the fact that you had to do certain things to attract them. And then once you got them, you're like, well, they're going to stick around regardless. I'm good. And once you get into that mind frame, that's usually when it starts to go downhill, because you can't just think that because you got somebody, they're going to stay there. Now that you've heard from me, I'd like to hear from you. Do you think a man should have to play games to attract women? If you're watching on YouTube, leave your comments below or write me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. Are you ready to learn how to attract women via texting? Go to introvertdatingsuccess.com right now to download my free ebook, Texting Like a Boss, which will give you the secret do's and don'ts of attracting women with your messages the smart way. If you like this video, hit that like button, make sure to subscribe, and click the little bell icon to be notified about future videos. Also, catch the live version of this show on protestparty.tv every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. West Coast time to join in on the chat. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.